At first glance, this polynomial inequality may look different than the ones we've looked at, but it's really the same thing. This time we're given two different functions and asked to find out when is the f of x function less than the g of x function. Well, let's go ahead and plug our two functions into this inequality, and I'll show you how it's really no different than anything we've looked at so far. So x to the fourth minus 2 is our f of x function. I want to know when that's less than negative x squared. Well, there's a few ways you could do this. We could leave it as is, but I always like comparing to 0. So let's get everything moved to one side of the inequality. And if I put this in descending order, I'll put plus x squared and then minus 2. And I want to know when that is less than 0. So as you can see now, this is really no different than what we've looked at in the last video. I'll want to go ahead and factor this to find the zeros. And then take a look at the table or the graph to figure out where it's above or below the x-axis. And I think what I want to do for this one is actually just go to my table and find the zeros that way. So let's go ahead and switch to the graphing calculator, find my zeros, and then figure out whether my intervals are positive or negative. Alright, so here's my polynomial entered into my graphing calculator. Notice I haven't factored this one. I'm going to just use my table to kind of find the zeros in an easy way. So go ahead and go into your table, and remember what you're looking for are where y is equal to 0. So I can see that I get two x-intercepts, two zeros at -1 and at +1. And if I check my graph, I can confirm that, yeah, the only two zeros I get are at -1 and +1. Those are the only two spots where the graph touches the x-axis. So on my number line, I've labeled -1 and +1. And then since I'm at my graph, I guess I'll use my graph to determine whether the signs are positive or negative. So pick a number, pick an x value smaller than -1, so somewhere over here. And I can see that my graph is up above me, so I put a plus sign on that interval. If I pick a number between -1 and +1, I can see my graph is below me, so I included a negative. And then finally, if I pick a number, an x value over here, I can see my graph is up above me, so I included a positive sign. We can also double check that by looking at the table. And again, pick an x value smaller than -1, same thing we've done in the previous videos. I can see that the sign of the y value is positive, so everything over there is positive. Pick a number between -1 and 1, like 0, and I can see my y value is negative. And then pick a number bigger than 1, and I can see that my y value is again positive. So what I'm looking for is when this graph is below 0, when it's negative, in other words. So the one interval that the graph was negative was between -1 and +1. And because I don't want to be equal to 0, just less than 0, I've included parentheses to say that 1 and -1 are not solutions, just numbers that are really, really close to -1 or